Can you kill the lights?
This is the Kill the Lights podcast on our very first episode. I am Karl. I am a horror author and a movie critic.
And this is Joey D. I wrote for a bunch of one music magazine, and I wrote a bunch of music articles, and I used to be in a thrash death metal band, so that's basically it.
which is one of our favorite things.
Yeah, I guess the common goal here, I guess the common thread right now with me and Karl is we're both into horror stuff, so we decided to come up with this podcast called Kill the Lights, and it's basically the dark side of pop culture, like Karl said a while ago. Well, we're looking for a better tagline, but I guess for episode number 1, this should be our tagline for the moment. But yeah, we're starting off with episode number 1 with a very interesting horror movie that was shown not too long ago. It's called Maledicto. And well, what's the story behind Maledicto, Karl?
Well, it's the first horror movie. It's actually the first movie produced by Fox International Pictures in the Philippines, and it's nominally about possession, right?
Possession.
But before that, I wanted to talk about all our favorite horror movies that are basically about demonic possession.
Around that possession. Of course, when you say possession, I guess the first thing that'll come to anyone who's our age and older is, of course, The Exorcist, which is a landmark in not just in the horror genre but in the film genre.
Tall shadow.
Really, really big. Basically, that movie set the bar really high. This was not your usual horror, guts, gore.
Very cerebral.
Monsters. Yeah, it was something that without the aid of special effects, it was just terrifying in its nature.
Even until now, I think.
I think it still holds up to this day. But I don't know. I guess we're both big fans, so a lot of people might contest that. But The Exorcist was number 1. It was scary because number 1, the writing was super excellent. A lot of what happened there was never seen or heard of before. For example, to give you easy examples, the spider walk, a young girl,
Linda Blair,
Linda Blair shoving the crucifix up her private parts.
Yes.
This was there was talk that when this was premiered in theaters, people actually had to leave the theater in disgust. Some people actually threw up in the theater.
Some fainted, I think.
Some fainted. Basically, it was a lot to handle during those times. For
1973, definitely.
For 1973. So it was a landmark in the horror genre. And what else? What other movies?
Well,
there's the Exorcism of
Emily
Rose.
For you, is that a good one? Because that's one of my favorites.
Yeah, I thought that was a really good one because it was a scary movie, but not really meant to be a scary movie.
No.
It posed a lot of questions.
Definitely.
Not about exorcism, but the legalities of performing an exorcism. Yeah. The question, even though there were a lot of terrifying scenes, I think it was represented well, wherein the other side of the argument was this girl just mentally ill?
Yeah, where do you draw the line between is it mental illness or is it possession?
Like a real deal exorcism, like your 100% head spinning exorcism, right?
And it was that I think that possession right there in that movie was a landmark case. Mostly because the Vatican eventually instituted a filter or like a rule where you needed to go through a psychiatrist.
They came up with a guidebook. If what you had was like a Webster's dictionary definition of a possession.
If there are signs of mental illness, then you definitely need to go through a psychiatrist first and have it designated as schizophrenia or depression or whatever other mental illness. But yeah, I agree that was a landmark movie as well because, maybe some possessions are really just people who are in need of help and are sick, right?
Like, and then, well, what other movies were there? There was The Rite.
The Rite with Anthony Hopkins was pretty good for me because it featured the skeptic priest.
Exactly.
It flipped it.
Well, when you really think about it, all these movies have one thing in common, which The Exorcist started. It was the central figure, again, I think the common misconception up to now, especially that there are brain dead kids who don't really read. I think the common misconception is the exorcism is the actual devil or the beast.
Yeah.
An exorcist is not the spirit. An exorcist is actually the priest who
Yes.
performs the rite
Yes.
to drive out demons possessing a human being.
It kind of reminds me, Joey, of people mistaking Frankenstein's monster as Frankenstein.
As Frankenstein. Frankenstein
Classic.
was the doctor.
The doctor, bro.
The monster was just Frankenstein's monster.
Yes.
So that's
Unnamed.
one thing we got to clarify. And all of these movies about Exorcist featured men of the cloth with a
Yeah.
crisis of faith.
Yes, mostly.
I think that was the common denominator of all these movies. With the Rite, I think I didn't find it as great as the Exorcism. Of
the
Emily
idea was
Rose.
more. Yeah, I agree with that. The
And
idea
it
was more
also-
alluring.
It also brought to light how the Vatican, or how how would you call it, the powers that be. The idea was given that the powers that be sort of wanted to put exorcism, and they wanted to basically throw a sheet over exorcism. They
Yeah.
didn't want to acknowledge it as something that was relevant in the 21st century,
Yeah.
and that I guess it shed light that if there are the men in black for alien encounters, the Vatican also had that group of people who didn't want
Specialists.
to they wanted to basically cover up demon possession and
Yes.
and the existence and the need for exorcism in the 21st century.
Yeah,
So
because the church was trying to change its image and trying
it's trying
to
to change its
um,
image.
attract more converts.
Exactly, because as a lot of you may know, the 20th, 21st century, Christianity was losing its grip over the people.
Yes.
Basically, organized religion was being exposed for what it was. People
Yes.
were standing up to it. People
Yes.
weren't necessarily buying the BS that came
Yes.
with organized religion. So as much as I didn't enjoy the Rite that much, I appreciated that kind of light being
Yes,
shed.
the ideas that it was throwing out.
was throwing out there.
Should we be a skeptic? Should the church be skeptical about its own practices?
And
Yeah.
and the people behind it. I mean, because like as all people and all these horror movies portrayed, the people of the cloth, men of the cloth, the church, these people are also regular human beings.
Yes, they're vulnerable.
They are flawed.
There you
They
go.
are vulnerable to
Yes.
whatever. They have their, how would you say, biases. They have their
weaknesses.
their motivations, their ulterior and exterior motives.
Yes.
So yeah, those are I guess those are the basic examples
Mhm.
of exorcism
possession movies.
possession movies.
I also
that-
really enjoyed Conjuring 1 and 2.
Yeah,
That was an okay
that was
franchise
okay.
until it like devolved.
yeah. I guess the thing with the Conjuring is I think I mostly appreciated the presence of the two demonologists.
Yeah, the investigators.
The investigators. Again, it was one of those movies where it wasn't really about
No,
the victim.
No,
It
the
wasn't
victim.
really about the possessed. It was really about the
people who were
investigators.
tackling it
Yeah.
and their crisis of faith.
Their crisis of fate as well. And then you have your TV series. I thought The Exorcist, the TV
Oh, the reboot.
the
Yes,
reboot
in
the
2016, I think.
was that 2016?
Yeah, I think it was 2016.
Wow, that was a long time ago.
Yeah.
But yeah, in 2016, a series was released. Was it an HBO series?
No, I think it was like AMC, like in the Walking, same network as the Walking Dead.
Network as The Walking
Yeah.
Dead. And again, it was a continuation of where the first Exorcist movie left off.
Yes.
Because let's face it, Exorcist 2 and 3, those you'd be better
3
off
could
forgetting.
be yeah,
You'd be
I
better
agree
off
about
forgetting
2. 3 could be more or less salvageable, but 2 was just
2 is horrible.
yeah.
2
I don't think even the devil would like.
yeah, remember the insect ride?
Yes.
And that was so horrible.
It was so bad. It wasn't even bad good. It was just
Yeah.
bad.
But yeah, the getting back the TV series I thought was
Yeah.
really great.
awesome.
It featured again men of the cloth with
Yeah.
the Exorcist was he had an affair
Yeah.
And then the priest, let's say the OG badass priest that was helping him, turned out to be gay.
Gay. Yeah. So he has his
Uh,
own crisis of
so
faith.
I thought this was a good updating of what the original Exorcist movie started off doing.
Yeah, and where does it go from there? Does the demon just leave? Apparently not. I mean,
yeah.
in that series, spoilers, the demon or the evil runs in the family.
Yeah,
Because Linda Blair also
she
stars
made a
in that.
return appearance
As
and she
Reagan
had-
as well.
as Reagan herself, and
Yeah.
it was her granddaughter who was suffering
Yeah.
from a possession by Pazuzu, the original
Pazuzu,
demon
the original
in,
demon. Yeah.
in the Exorcist movie. And as soon as season 2, as the first season was wound up, they closed the door on the movie, the continuity on the movie.
Yes.
And then season 2 was way even better, as I've heard. I haven't seen it yet, but
I saw the first couple of episodes. It was good until they I think just ate its own tail and just exploded in its under its own weight. But it was pretty good premise. Like, where do they go after Pazuzu goes? As a villain, right?
yeah. So yeah, to all that, it's clearly unavoidable to talk about this because number one, as we mentioned, Maledicto, which is
Mhm.
released under the
Fox Philippines.
Fox Philippines, the local arm of Fox International. Again, if you've seen it, it seems unfair to say, but I guess it's an unavoidable topic.
Mhm.
If you've seen one exorcism movie, you've seen them all.
There are really conventions to the genre that must be subverted if you're like going to call yourself a new exorcism movie.
Exactly. Like number one, as soon as I caught wind that there was this movie,
Mhm.
I was like, how can you top a scene wherein a young girl shoves a crucifix up her private parts
Yes.
and screams, "Let Jesus fuck
Yes.
you"? How can you top that? Of course, there's gonna be blasphemy.
Yes.
You expect it.
Yes.
But the thing is, it's pretty hard to top what The Exorcist did. So number one, coming into the movie theater with you, that was one thing I was expecting. How far?
How is the gore going to play
Yeah,
out?
how
are the
are you gonna
shocks?
push the envelope?
Yeah.
Because number one, it has to be shocking because let's
It's
face
demonic
it, shock will
possession,
keep
man.
you in your seat.
Yeah.
Number two is how well, of course, special effects. Again, we mentioned you don't really need special effects in the genre in a
Mhm.
genre like this. But again, there are certain scenes that will call for special effects,
Definitely.
and how will it stand up to the effects of
The other
the other
movies that have come
movies?
before it.
Because I thought, like, I remember we were talking about the Rite. There was a, I just found that one scene really ridiculous when was it was it a poison frog or a poison insect that
Yeah,
leaps
coming
out of the throat
yes,
of the
of the possessed
victim?
person.
And I just thought that's funny. That's
Right.
That's just funny. I was like, what the fuck is a frog doing in somebody's?
Well, part of the, I think, escalation of real life possession is materialization from the possessed, like objects or animals, or
Yeah,
stuff like that. But yeah, that was quite funny.
that was
right?
funny. Like a
it-
frog coming out of a person's.
See, that's
Well,
part
it
of
is.
why I think these things are interesting from a storytelling perspective. How do you make it like, ooh, it's evil?
Yeah, it's not like you
Like-
can show like a Mesopotamian demon like in its
Exactly.
true form and glory coming
Exact-
out of
no.
a person's body. You can't really do that. So again, you have these things like symbolism and whatever.
Yeah, the
I don't know
metaphor
what
of
the
it.
fuck a frog means. All I know is if a frog is not green, it's a poison frog.
It's a
so
poison
that's what
frog,
I
yeah.
figured when I was watching the Rite.
The right,
And,
yeah.
and
No offense to Anthony Hopkins, he was great there.
No
Everything
offense.
else was kind of like,
and the end towards the ending, like all those upside down crucifixes.
yeah,
I thought that
classic.
I thought that was pretty thrash metal. So
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, that's fucking awesome.
That's hardcore, man.
So yeah, coming into Maledicto,
Yeah,
especially that it's a local film.
Yeah.
Like let's be honest here, local films never have the best rap.
no, it's
it's-
kind of like even an unspoken memo
Yeah,
in like movie
it's like-
critics where don't thrash it too bad.
People
We're
will,
trying.
people will hate me, but 99.9%. I mean,
I would say 99%. Maybe there's like a
or let me correct
Like,
myself. 99.9% of movies that make it to the
that
cinemas,
make it to the cinemas. Yes,
it's probably crap. But well,
I think we need to clarify that, Joey. Though, like, why does it make it to the cinema? Mostly because um, the producers or the studio want it to become a hit with the
Yeah,
Filipino
I mean,
movie-going public,
it's
right?
all politics. At the end of the day, it's the business, it's the nature
Yeah.
of the beast. Filipino tastes verge on the bakya and the
Yeah, or
and the
what they
bakla.
think is
Yeah,
like Filipino taste, right?
exactly. It's like you have your vice gandas, you have your enting kabisotes, you have your whatever. So rarely, except for the what I call the glory years
Philippine
of
cinema.
cinema, which is remember all those shake, rattle, and roll films,
Yeah, absolutely.
especially the very
Absolutely.
first of the series. They were truly terrifying for me as a kid. These were simple stories, but one, the acting was great. Two, it was something relatable, but not bakya because
Exactly.
it was Philippine mythology. We
Yeah.
were talking about Tianaks, we were
Yeah.
talking about Aswang.
Exactly.
So
And they weren't even full movies by themselves, man.
weren't
They were
full movies.
anthologies of short
Exactly.
movies.
And they were very effective. And being part of a shake, rattle, and roll film was sort of like a badge of honor before
Yeah,
for local celebrities.
exactly.
If you made it to one of those films, that meant that your career was
Because
going
it's hard to
somewhere.
do horror.
It's hard to do horror, and well, again, like the Metro Manila Film Festival was always held during Christmas Day.
Exactly.
So it was nice to have a horror film
Yeah.
on Christmas Day.
Yeah.
So yeah, coming into Maledicto, I guess what piqued my interest the most, aside from getting an invitation
Yeah.
to watch it for free and
Did you
getting
like it
free
though,
pop,
man? I mean, overall,
I guess
we were talking about that and like,
yeah, I don't know. Definitely I didn't hate it
Yeah,
because
yeah.
I guess the
we
best
can agree on that.
the
I
best
think.
indication. Look, fuck, I don't sleep. So
Tell them about that, Joe.
every time I get into a comfortable place with good air conditioning and food,
Food and
I
just
doze off.
darkness.
So usually I doze off when I'm inside the theaters. This time I did not doze
Yeah,
off.
you were awake
Not even for a second, which was very surprising.
and you were eating popcorn a lot, bro.
I was eating a lot of popcorn, and the one thing I guess that kept me interested was I felt that I won't go as far as saying as the actors and the actresses did a great job, but I think they did a convincing job enough to keep my attention.
Well, let's talk about that. Well, the movie is nominally about Tom Rodriguez, who is a soap opera star apparently, because neither of us watch local TV.
yeah, so we'll use the word apparently.
Apparently, which is a good I think contrast to make because he plays a priest in crisis called Father Savvy, who was supposed to be a psychiatrist, but in the middle of his taking up his doctorate, something happens to his kid sister.
Yeah. His kid sister gets basically she's locked in an asylum.
For alleged mental illness. at the very
Alleged
least,
mental
yeah.
illness, but in truth she was possessed by a demon.
Mhm.
And then of course all the signs are there, not really coming from a solid family background. They showed how much they despise their parents' wishes.
Yeah.
Basically
and
they were there for each other.
for each other as siblings
as
who are
siblings.
who come together in times of parental outrage or
Exactly.
neglect.
And short story short, to make a short story even shorter, the sister kills herself in the middle of one of her possession attacks. And ever since our main character,
Father Savvy.
Father Savvy, he gives up all his dreams to becoming a doctor, a psychiatrist,
Yeah.
and he becomes a priest who specializes in exorcisms
Yeah.
and whatnot. And word spreads quickly about what happened to his sister, and then he basically continues, I guess word spread around in the seminary and among other priests that if you're looking for the guy to exorcise your
He's a pretty good exorcist because he's also a man of science.
exactly, he's
Yeah.
your go-to guy. So it's the best of both worlds for this guy.
Yeah.
And during the movie, the plot was a little slow.
Yeah, it was. I think overall for me the script could have been tighter, but please go on about how the story unfolds because there is some interesting twists right
There
there.
are some very interesting twists. Unfortunately, they all come. I feel it was rushed. It was all put together in the end. But basically, after Father Savvy's sister offs herself,
Mhm.
he comes across a case
Mhm.
brought to his attention by Jasmine Curtis-Smith character, sister.
Who
What's her
plays
name?
Sister Barbara, but
Sister Barbara, but who he
yeah,
affectionately calls Sister
Sister Barbie.
Barbie.
Much to her dismay.
Yeah. Good looking, very good looking nun.
I
uh,
know.
she brings the case of Miles Ocampo's character
Yeah, because she teaches at a high school.
at a high
At a high
school.
school,
So a girl next door, goody
yeah,
two shoe
goody
type,
two shoe,
starts
high
acting
grades, stuff like
weirdly.
that.
And again, she's convinced that she is possessed by the devil or a
Hmm.
demon. And
Mostly
yeah,
because she has a gut feel and intuition deriving from her some kind of psychic powers, which she calls charism.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, which is, well, what's the textbook definition of that?
The textbook
Basically, you
definition
can
is,
see
yeah,
shit,
you're
right?
basically you basically have true sight.
So you're in
Is
tune with this.
you're in tune with the spirit world, stuff like that. You can see ghosts, spirits, probably elementals.
Demons. So
But of course, there's none of that in the Bible and none of that in Catholicism. So they call it charism,
charism.
which is a different take on the psychic powers because it's imbued by God.
So she herself is also dismissed by the powers that be.
Yes.
Because again, her supposed superhuman powers
Yes.
are not of Catholic origin,
Yes.
or of they're not generally accepted as something legit in the Christian faith.
Mm-hmm.
So story goes on. They do their research.
Mhm.
Apparently, there is a bruja living somewhere in Mandaluyong,
Mhm.
which is who
Very
has
appropriate, like in
in
Mandaluyong.
Mandaluyong of all places, who has summoned this demon.
Yeah.
The demon apparently, somewhere down the line in the movie, it's said that the demon is one of the 7 deadly sins.
Yeah.
The representation of
Of
one
one
of the
of
deadly
them.
sins.
Yeah.
And basically it shows, number one, the skepticism of Father Savvy.
Mhm.
Then once he is convinced, number two, it shows the lack of support coming from the powers that be.
Yes.
The Vatican.
There, he has no backing.
He has no
basically.
backing. Number three, it shows how the church, well, the local arm of the church, wanted Father Savvy to be a sort of fall guy,
Mhm.
just in case shit goes wrong.
Yeah, or to write it off as a anomaly of mental illness.
Basically, they just wanted someone to point the finger at,
Yeah,
because they
exactly.
knew this wasn't gonna end well.
They gave it to him. Yeah, he was a fall guy. They gave it to him exactly because they thought he would dismiss it,
Exactly, or he would fuck shit up, and the patient would
Yeah.
end up killing herself.
killing herself because it's happened before.
So everybody happy. This guy takes the fall.
Yeah.
He for all they fucking care, this nun could also take the fall with him,
Exactly.
because she was also crazy,
Yes.
claiming to see demons and shit.
Yes.
But needless to say, Father Savvy, Barbie, they both triumph.
Yeah.
But during the end of the movie, it's revealed there's an even bigger conspiracy.
Which is what actually
It
was
the
interesting
most
to me.
interesting
Yeah.
part.
Why couldn't they have led with that? Right?
Yeah, I mean, if that was somehow introduced early on in the movie,
Yeah.
I guess it would have been way more interesting. I
Yes,
would have
I
ate
agree.
less popcorn. I would have not went to the comfort room.
You would have
But,
just sat there
I
and
would've
actually
sat
been
there, yeah.
mesmerized.
But again, seeing that the bar and the expectation for Philippine cinema, in my case at least, is pretty low.
Uh-huh. So you came
I
in there
think
with
this
pretty
was a-
low expectations.
Pretty low expectations. So
Okay.
when I can't exactly call it a great movie, but I think, one, it exceeded my low expectations. So two, therefore, I'm a lot more interested in what else
Is
these
going to
guys-
happen.
Is what else is going to happen, or
Yeah.
what else Fox can come up with
That's true.
in the future.
I agree with that.
Basically, that's the entire movie.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, we're making it simple, but actually, it is a pretty simple movie.
It is a pretty
Very
simple movie.
There's
Yeah.
no mind fuck involved. There's no. Again, the twist comes at the end, but it's not one of those holy shit twists. It's
no,
just like,
no.
oh,
Oh, hey, that's
Iron-
interesting.
That's interesting because there was a foreign movie before that sort of like did a play on
Yes.
that thing.
Hey, I know where you guys took that.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. So again, we're not knocking the film, but
No,
again, if
no.
you've seen one possession movie, you've seen
You've
them
seen
all.
them all.
And
I actually,
Maledicto didn't seem
yeah.
to put too much effort into deviating from
From that.
the basic requirements.
I do like two major things about it, though, bro.
Yeah.
Like, first of all, I think there was a lot of authenticity going on for it, like the escalation of the steps of the demonic attack. Those
Yeah.
things really do happen. Like even William Friedkin, who said in his recently that when he eventually like was able to reveal things about his research during the Exorcist, that he actually was invited to a Vatican exorcism, and then of course the Vatican just totally denied that he
Yeah.
had been invited. But for sure, the things that he had discovered and the things that he had put on film were the same. They unfolded just exactly the same, and it shows here as well in Maledicto, which, by the way, Maledicto means bad words.
Okay.
Um, I think
Bad
it's a
words
play.
like blasphemy or bad
Yeah, I
words
think
like.
it just means taunting and
Oh,
basically
okay.
instigating you into something, which is what a demon does anyway,
Okay.
right? I like that the authenticity, the effort to actually play out the steps correctly, from simple things, whispers in your ear. That I remember that chair
Yeah.
in front of well, that was like kind of funny, but okay.
That scene where the chair moves
The chair
while
suddenly
he's
moves.
researching the case, and
Yeah, like how awesome is that book? Things
yeah,
can just suddenly move, man, while you're reading it. And then the next one is they send animals or they send creatures after you,
yeah,
stuff like that. So that's one. The second one is, um, I really like the characters and they seem to be. It's towards the end it was a buddy movie, right?
yeah,
I like how they play against each other, where the nun is the straight man, and Father Savvy, who is actually a man of science. He plays like kind of like the
the
cool and
skeptic.
loose. Yeah, the skeptic and the cool and loose kid. Like
Yeah.
I'm actually um the outlaw here,
Yeah,
stuff
he's
like
a
that.
loose cannon.
He's a
kind
loose
of priest,
cannon.
Yeah,
Like, come on, he's a man of science. He's a loose cannon. So I appreciate that. The two things I really didn't like about it were, first of all, sadly the effects.
yeah,
Because and towards the end, you were right. Really, I absolutely agree with that. That they needed to intensify things at some point, and the fact that they weren't using any overt sexual innuendos was very telling, because that's one of the, let's face it, that's one of the ways that the devil gets to you, right?
yeah.
That's why the
It's the
crucifix
ultimate
scene.
form of temptation.
Yeah, exactly. Plus, that's a young girl.
Yeah.
That you're trying to exercise. There you go. It kind of ended up looking like there was a scene where it kind of ended up looking like black metal corpse paint
Yeah.
on her face,
Yeah.
instead of like, oh, okay, that's funny, instead of being
Attack
oh,
of the My Chemical Romance rejects. Yeah.
from Norway.
From Norway.
From
yeah,
Norway,
or,
where they put on their corpse
or
paint
Southern
badly.
California, whatever floats your boat.
Yeah,
But
California.
yeah,
Right?
I guess
Go on.
the thing with Maledicto is, number one, I'm glad that the effort was there.
Mhm.
I'm glad that it wasn't some stupid musical or some stupid comedy that
Which-
Fox decided
Yeah.
to back the
Yeah.
Philippine directors up with. Again, the stuff that we appreciate about the film, and I remember they mentioned
Uh-huh.
that for authenticity, some of the lines used in the exorcism was actually what they say. They had
Yes.
just changed just enough for
Just
it
enough.
not to be
Yes.
a legit
Exorcism.
exorcism. But
Because the
I-
Vatican would be up in arms.
Oh yeah, but I appreciate that they did that. They didn't insult like
Yeah, the
anyone's
audience.
intelligence
Yeah.
by just
Let's make
comment.
let's make shit up.
let's
and
make
like,
gibberish up and whatever. So they did the research. The claim was also there that they did.
they were immersed.
in
That
an
they had done their
exorcism.
research.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess those are things that you appreciate. Again, albeit 20, 30 years practice too late, but at least we're getting there.
We're getting there, and we're trying, I think.
Yeah,
One
and
of the
I guess the selection of like the casting.
casting was pretty
it
good. It
was
was,
we didn't go for the obvious choices. Like I
No.
would have hated it if Coco Martin was.
yeah,
the priest,
exactly. Or
And Liza
like,
Soberano
Liza
was
Soberano
Sister
was there,
Barbie,
like, stuff like that.
and Vice Ganda was the was the possessed victim. I would have hated if they went that way.
Yeah.
But overall, like on a scale
What was
of,
your scale?
on a
What is your
scale of 1 to
score?
5, I would
Yeah.
have given it a 2.5
2.5.
probably.
Yeah.
Maybe slightly higher, maybe a 2.8, almost a 3. I mean, again, in my book, that's pretty high for
For a
Philippines.
Filipino
And
film,
yeah,
and that is horror, that is possession, right?
yeah, that's basically it. So,
I really did appreciate though, Joey, that there was one really good characterization scene of Father Savvy where he goes to this young boy's house in the squatters area, right?
yeah,
And then he asks to be shown where the boy is hanging out usually at his friend's house
yeah,
because the mother says, "Well, he's been hanging out there, and then he comes back. He's always changed. He's like he's such a good boy, but when he comes there, he's so different." So he has to be shown the boy's place, the friend's place. When he get there, there's a police cordon around the boy's
yeah.
house, and he asks the police officer, "So what's going on here, sir?
Yeah.
Ano pong nangyari?"
What's the deal with this place? And apparently, it's a shabu den.
Yeah, it's a shabu
It's
din. Tapos patay na yung kaibigan.
so yeah. I mean that tickled our number one. It gave truth to what's been happening in the
Exactly.
Philippines.
It's context, right?
It's context. It created an atmosphere wherein we believe that okay, this shit
Yeah.
is actually happening.
It's nice what he said to the
Uh,
mother, the mother though, right?
Yeah.
Said, "Hindi po kailangan exorcist ng anak nyo.
Yeah.
Kailangan po ng rehab."
Yeah, your son doesn't need an exorcist.
Yeah.
He needs to be put in
Needs to be
rehab.
in
Yeah.
rehab.
So, that was really good.
I lolled there.
Yeah.
Good point, guys.
So yeah, we were supposed to interview Jude Torquato
Torquato.
of Fox Philippines,
Yeah.
but unfortunately he couldn't make it because I think he had to go out of the country or something.
Yeah, it's
But
fine.
yeah, I guess one of the questions I originally had for Jude was, especially being part of Fox Philippines,
Mhm.
is one, why select Maledicto?
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
apparently a lot of scripts
Yeah.
were submitted to them,
Yeah.
and I mean this was not just one movie that they decided to fund and produce. There were a lot, and so yeah, it makes you wonder.
I have
why.
the same question actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, why? What was the process of selecting eventually a horror film and a demonic horror film of that?
Exactly.
I get the Catholic context of ours. Like maybe it'll appeal to the Catholic and church going public.
But then again, it was also pretty. I don't know if it was a coincidence or not, but at the same time, Maledicto was showing. I don't know if it was exactly the same time or a few weeks prior. Another horror movie was
was it
released.
Eerie?
Eerie?
I haven't
And
seen
then there was this other one. They were, I don't know. Like I said,
it. Yeah.
I don't really watch TV, but I know of 2 rotating horror films that were
films.
being advertised on TV.
I
So,
think that's
I don't
showing
know.
in 2 weeks. That the next one you were saying, I think is
Yeah.
from Eric Mati.
From Eric Mati. Quaresma.
Quaresma, there you go.
So I don't know if there's
Shout
an
out to Eric
influx
Mati's,
of if
yeah.
there's a logical point to why there's an influx.
Why there's
of
an influx in May of horror movies?
Horror movies. I mean, we're still a few months away from October.
Exactly.
But again,
Does
I
this give
guess,
you hope, Joey, for horror films in the Philippines?
I wouldn't go that far in saying as I'm hopeful, but I guess as you get older, you're just you complain less, and right
Appreciate
now,
it for what it is.
yeah,
Right?
right now the thing is I'm not complaining.
Yeah.
I'd rather it be a
Which
horror
is progress, I think, right?
movie. Again, if
In a way.
I'm not complaining, that's progress.
That's
If I'm not
Yes.
complaining, that's progress.
That
yeah.
is progress. Right?
But yeah, the I guess Maledicto was closest to my heart in if figuratively speaking, because again, it's just straight up possession.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just we're not dealing with an element. We're not dealing with
No.
folklore. We're dealing with
This
the fucking
evil.
devil himself,
this
right?
is evil, man.
So
Yeah.
this is like going straight to the point, and
It actually hits the right notes at the very least. There are genre conventions that it plays into. And again, our main complaint, or at least criticism, is it doesn't subvert those tropes enough and makes them their own to actually make it a unique movie. But it's
Yeah.
well crafted. I'll
Well
give them that.
crafted.
Within the budget that they had.
Within the budget. Yeah. I guess that's one of the things I remember after you wrote your review.
Yeah, exactly.
Was it Jude who commented?
Yeah, actually, because the trivia is I send it to the creative director, which is Jude, and he said,
Yeah.
"Yes, I actually agree with your review.
Yeah.
the The people who made it made do with the budget that they had. Thank you."
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
So-
So it's a good sign that the money person actually agrees with you.
Yeah.
Right?
And again, it's good news that whoever funded it didn't feel like his money was wasted.
Yeah.
I think it was. I guess I wouldn't say it was bad luck, but I
Mhm.
guess a lot of people might have taken a chance on it if it wasn't showing around the same period as Endgame was showing.
Oh my God,
or
yeah.
Around the same
Yeah.
period as some whatever the fuck hit movie
Those
was.
huge movies.
There've been a lot of huge international films, so it's easy to get like throw cast aside and whatnot,
Lost in the shuffle.
lost in the shuffle. But I really felt that well, number one,
Mhm.
we could have changed a lot more minds or caught a lot more attention if one, the I don't know, it would have been cool if the screening was
Midnight screening, something like that.
midnight screening,
For
come in your
atmosphere.
best costume,
Yeah.
come in your best whatever, because all we got, like, I'm not knocking it, sometimes that works, but all we got during the premiere was just, I'll call it for what it is. We got the noontime show treatment of the
Yeah, we
premiere.
did, which was
Yeah,
like kind of a disappointment.
we
There
had-
was not much atmosphere, and atmosphere is like big in these things.
Yeah, I mean, the host was super flamboyant.
Yeah, I didn't get that.
Super- Yeah.
Are
it-
we in a
it-
carnival?
Yeah, it felt like it was the premiere of the new Enteng Kabisote film. And people were excited, smiles everywhere. There was
Why?
But I was like, it's a fucking
We're going to
horror
go
movie.
see a
Yeah.
demon.
The point
Fuck up a
tonight
young
is
girl.
to not be able to sleep and be
Exactly.
scared shitless.
Exactly. There you go.
But what we got, again, I'm not saying it's a bad thing. It's just how things are usually
Played out
done
here. Yeah.
But all we got was like, oh, a premiere. Oh, this celebrity. Ooh, what are you wearing? Ooh, what are you? Look at who's here. And
Why don't you invite the 7 deadly sins or something?
But yeah,
cosplay.
I think a lot of it'll be a lot cooler if we started treating premieres that way, and
In genre, at the very least.
yeah. Again, I'm not knocking it. Those things are useful for certain things,
Yeah.
but not for
Not-
a
not
movie
for
like
those.
Maledicto. I
Yeah.
felt that had the marketing or the gimmick
The
part
hype.
of the thing
Yeah.
been like sort of akin to what the movie was all about, we might have changed a few minds there. Might have had more people show up at the cinema rather
I
than
agree.
the celebrities themselves. That's one thing I don't get about premieres. Like,
Mhm.
why do celebrities and their families get the best seats? They're in
Yeah, I
the
don't get it. They're
movie.
already
It's not
in the
like
movie,
they have
man.
to watch it.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So that's one thing I don't get. But I guess I mean,
That's just the way I think business is done here. So,
yeah.
and we're not studio people anyway. We're just like
Yeah.
people who appreciate this stuff.
But yeah, I'm excited. I guess.
I hope they do actually. I mean, the audiences get better for them because, I think they were trying to campaign for block screenings in a couple of cinemas, and they got turned down flat
Yeah.
because Avengers was just.
Because of Endgame, it was just too big.
Yeah.
But look,
that's a sad.
in the film Maledicto, they got rid of. They basically
Mhm.
conquered one of the demons that personified one of the 7 deadly sins. So
Exactly.
they got 6 more.
Exactly.
They got to deal with. So
Hopefully they make this universe a good one.
Exactly. There's 6 more of the 7 deadly sins you have to deal with, plus a shitload of other demons.
Yeah.
I mean,
Minions, I'm sure,
minions and whatnot.
coming out of their
So
wazoo.
this could be the potential start of a good series, of a good horror series.
True.
If they play their cards right and they keep getting better and better and progress with what they've done with the first show. I think that's the trick. It can be the start of a good series. Two of them. I mean,
It was a good night, I think. I mean, I was glad I went out and I went there and came to see it. I don't think it was a waste of time.
Yeah. Shout outs to Trisha Pablo.
Trisha Pablo, thank you
for
very much for the
inviting us.
invite.
Yeah. Hopefully we get to see more from these guys. And
Joey, do you think we should invite people to see it, or at the very least check it out if
if
they're horror
by the
fans?
time this comes out, if it's still showing, you should definitely
You should definitely go
check
see
it
it,
out.
right?
Or if Netflix buys it, you should definitely
You should
watch
definitely watch it.
it. Hopefully. Oh well, that sounds wrong. Does Fox have its own channel?
I think Fox has its own
Yeah, if
channel.
Fox comes out and if it's online or whatever, you should definitely give it a chance. Again, it's one of those. I guess I'll call it for what it is. It's a flick. It's a popcorn flick.
It's a popcorn flick.
Yeah.
You could spend your time on worse things
Yeah.
than this movie.
Yeah. So load up on the snacks. Get your friends together and experience Maledicto. It's fun, and it beats hanging out at the mall.
Absolutely.
Because you can do that any day.
Exactly. If it doesn't tickle your fancy, you can always just put Exorcist
Yeah,
back
you
on
can
and
Yeah.
enjoy all the head turning and the crucifix fucking. I got immersed in demonology at one time because I edited that book called Demons of the New Year, right?
Yeah.
So I appreciate that. It's not easy to immerse in that.
Wait, we're talking 3 out of 10, or we're talking 3 out of
No,
5?
3 out of 5.
5.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah,
Which is
3
very generous,
3 out of
right?
10
You
was
you have a
pretty
2 out of 7 or probably
Yeah.
2 out of 8.
yeah, I got
2.8.
like a 2.5 out
2.5.
of 5. Yeah. This has been the first episode of Kill the Lights.
Kill the lights.
Again, we're going to be exploring a lot more stuff. Again, it's the dark side of pop culture.
All things gritty, extreme
gritty,
in
extreme,
music,
you name
movies,
it.
literature.
Horror. Of course, we're music fans, we're musicians, so we're definitely gonna
Talk about
explore,
those as well. Yeah.
some artists, musicians that you may not usually see in the daylight. Again, this is Kill the Lights, and
Thank you so much for listening.
thanks for listening. We'll catch you next time.